Good morning.
Hello,
Good morning.
hello.
Hi.
How are
Hi,
you?
how are you doing? Good to see you both.
Hi, Amy.
Hi. All right, let me pull up. I am going to, because you guys have the magical adaptations to your PowerPoint. So I'm going to get so that it fades in and out. If I take over control, you won't be able to use them. So I'm going to give you guys control and
Okay.
Okay, give
just that
Maggie
way.
control.
Yeah, well,
Angie doesn't want control.
all right, I will bump Maggie up. So that way, well, I'm gonna make you
Okay.
both. I'm gonna make you both presenters though, so people can see who's whom.
Okay.
Really easy, and that should let you share screens. So in the if you haven't figured it out, in the bottom corner, you see that purpley arrow.
Mhm.
If you click on that, that opens up your information on who's going to be signing up.
Okay.
The very middle button looks like a square with an arrow. If you click on that, it should pull up a drop down, and the fourth line down says share files. Click on that. You
Okay.
should be able to see your PowerPoint. No, I'm going to have you do it a different way. My bad.
Okay.
Do the second line down is share application and screen. So click on that for Maggie. And then you can share your entire screen.
Is it sharing? There we go. I don't have it in the presentation view yet, but
No,
I
but
work with 3 monitors, so I wanted to make sure
okay.
that
So
we were
you have
viewing
the
the correct
total,
one.
you have total screen control now, just like you would do it any other time. So we've sort of bypassed the limitations of the system so that you could get what you need. So I will be in the room and I'll introduce you guys and set the stage. My colleague Kim Ursry, it's URSY, will also be in here, and she's the technological guru. So worst case scenario, just sit tight, she'll fix it. But I would suspect things will go swimmingly. And if we get disconnected or whatever, people are very cool about it. And worst, again, worst case scenario, we could reschedule. Or, the three of us can meet and you could just record and I could play it archived. So don't worry about any of the connectivity possibilities. If you have other windows open, you should close them down if you're not using them. And just to make sure, you should be in not using Firefox, but if you have it using Chrome, I'm assuming you already are because you're having good access. So
Yes, I did have a question about, can we shut down this Blackboard screen? I usually keep everything down and do not disturb, but I wanted to make sure that the 2 tabs that are related to the course
no,
wouldn't affect the meeting.
actually leave those open
Okay.
just in case, because every once in a while it seems the system gets a little confused. So
Okay.
you'll just have a few extra tabs open you can ignore because you won't ever have to go in and out. And then you can, just like normal screen in Zoom, you can bounce back and forth between your faces for both of you.
Okay. Great. Well, that's what I was playing with. The stop sharing is a little bit different than with Zoom, and so I wanted to make sure I was looking at the correct place for that.
Right. And yesterday we had 52 people registered. So if they all come, we should have a full group. It might be that people have gotten in the habit of registering and then knowing they'll get the recording later. But regardless, already people that are here are going to be good people to hear. So they're going to be involved already as it is. So I'll probably be dragging them into our next intended meeting. So do you have any questions for me? Anything you guys need?
I don't think so. Actually, I did just think of one. So in terms of the chat box function, when we put something into chat, like copy and pasting a link, I know
Yes.
we've kind of talked about having a backup plan, like when information is shared in the future, those two things can be shared as well. I just didn't know if I copied and pasted the links, if those would directly be accessible to participants.
They will. It's just
Okay.
like Zoom in that they can't see them if they're posted before they're in the room, but they would see any other things afterwards. I do have, let's see, the Google form evaluation link. I have the link to the FRYSCs Center database. I don't know if you'll need that, but I have it. I have the FRYSCs website, the KOG and FRYSCs counts, training hub, and coordinator links. But you can also throw things in anytime, and we could do a summary at the end, like if you want to compile everything into one, or I can compile whatever you post and just resend it to all the attendees along with the evaluation form, just to make sure everyone gets it. I can do that for you too.
That all sounds great. Yes, we were gonna, just because one of our objectives was specifically to be able to identify coordinators in the participant service areas, we are going to share that database. But that's the purpose. It has all the centers broken down by county as well as their contact info.
Sounds great. And that'll be, that I would think will be the main question you're going to get, even though I suspect most of the FRCs and libraries are already in touch, because those, it's been my experience that those two naturally get together pretty easily. So nevertheless, always good to follow up with that too. So
yes. Okay.
So Amy, I know you're going to start us off, and then will you close this at the end as well?
Yeah, I'll give you just the 5-minute warning, or maybe 15-minute warning too.
Okay.
Just just last minute wrap up and questions if you want to take them. I'll be watching the chat for you guys too. And if there seems to be an appropriate time, I can give you questions, but I can also gather them for the end. So I don't want to interrupt the flow either. So if you have do either one of you have a preference?
No, I don't care either way.
We have some nice transition moments in between different kind of chunks of the presentation. So if there are questions specifically related to the previous chunk, that might be a good time. So that would be one option.
Okay. Well, I'll let you say, Amy, do you have any questions, or, are we missing anything? Or encourage people, just as it's going on, to throw questions in the chat, and I'll be tracking them for you guys. And if at the end you haven't touched them, which I would bet won't be an issue because I've known the prep you guys have done, we can, there might be some very specific questions to a specific county or something. But, and then I can gather those for the end, and you guys have your emails and contact information. So I can refer people later too, if later on I get the emails of, dang it, I forgot, or something came up and I couldn't make it. And, as I mentioned before, we're recording, so you're going down in Kentucky on a history. So, smile big.
Well, and that's actually one of our questions in the evaluation as well. If any questions have arisen that were not thought to ask or that didn't get answered. So we should even, potentially be able to follow up with those.
Great. Lovely, lovely. So we have 11 minutes. We tend to start on time, just to be respectful of everyone's schedules, and especially of yours, since you're already giving us this time. So yeah. Oh, and if you finish early, you finish early. Don't worry about stretching it. Just, take questions, let it go. Don't worry about that at all. Some people get nervous and it never happens, but just so you know.
I usually find a nice balance of speaking much more quickly when presenting, but also rambling a little more. So
right. Let's see if I could do that. Yep. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are in already, and people will start to come in. We're you remember where that pink arrow, pinkish purpley arrow in the corner, you could see the chat feature is like a text bubble, like in a cartoon. So that's the first one. The second one lists all the people that are here. So Kim is also here. She and I will be your moderators. And then you already saw the share, which we've worked through. And the next button you won't have to touch. So that's just settings for you in general, and you're already set. So I think you're good. And yeah.
All right.
You guys
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah. No, gosh, you guys are doing it. And we have great connectivity, so we're good with that. And you might see people bouncing in and out. Sometimes the smaller counties, especially with system weather changes, may bump in and out. Nothing you're not used to. And what was the other thing? I'll think of it in a second. It obviously wasn't that important. Oh, not everybody has a microphone. So sometimes they'll be typing in the text chat. So I'll watch that there. Usually we just typically we have the presenter speaking unless you say, go ahead and feel free to, to respond with mic.
Okay.
So that you're not interrupted randomly, and then I'll gather the questions. So welcome everybody. We have about 9 more minutes left, and we'll get to experience the wisdom of Angie and Maggie, our representatives for the FRYSCs, the Family Resource and Youth Services Centers. So we still have some time, so go get your coffee, do a last minute stretch, grab whatever else you forgot, and we'll see you back in 8 minutes. I'm here. I'm just bouncing around checking emails because sometimes people need help and send me help emails. So if you need me, or Kim is here too, just holler out and I'll come right back. Welcome everyone that's joining us. We have about 5 more minutes, and so do your last minute stretches and grab what you need. We'll be back pretty soon and start at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We still have a few more minutes, but I wanted to give you some information. In the bottom right-hand corner, for those of you that aren't familiar with the Blackboard system yet, you see a pinkish purple or lilac colored arrows. If you click on those, you'll be able to open up a panel. On the panel, you'll see some different icons toward the bottom. One is for chatting, and that is how you can communicate with us or individually with people. If you click on the person's name, you can select them to independently chat. The next box over is the attendees that are here, and we're going to still have more people coming from the registration numbers we had. If you click on that, you can see who's here and who's joining us. The next part you won't need to use. That's right now for just our presenters. And if you go over to the next one, the gear, there's my settings. And if you click on that, 4 lines down, there's a line that says display closed captions. So we actually have someone here, the most amazing Doreen is here doing our closed captioning. So you are able to see that if you would like to have closed captioning. It will also be available in the recording when all of this is said and done. So just wanted to mention that that's there. And we're going to be starting in less than a minute. So I'll come back then and do our introductions of our presenters. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We are here to meet with our Family Resource and Youth Service Center representatives. Just looking at how we as public librarians and they as FRYSC workers can work together. Which reminds me, if you're not already muted, would you please mute? That would be great. We're going to leave it unmuted for our presenters, Angie and Maggie. So that is lovely. And let's see, let me do some introductions here. So we have two speakers with us today. Maggie Myers is a regional program manager for the Division of Family Resource and Youth Services Centers, which we also call FRYSCs. Prior to this position, Maggie had 10 years of experience as a FRYSC coordinator, 5 as a school counselor, and 1 as a programming coordinator. So she was with the Boyle County Public Library in Danville. So she knows what we do. So that really makes her a great liaison for us between public libraries and FRYSCs. So Maggie brings a unique perspective to our conversation today, as I just finished saying, working in both public education and in public libraries in Boyle County. So we also have Angie Daniels with us. She is the Family Resource Center coordinator at Kingston Elementary School in Berea, Kentucky. And Angie's been there since 2004 and really enjoys the relationship she's built with her students and staff throughout her years at Kingston. And she also looks forward to developing new programs that will help make a difference to the lives of her students. And that's one of the reasons that we're here together today. One other person that we don't have here quite yet, she's finishing up a meeting, is Melissa Newton. And she's the project and training manager. She's not going to be presenting, but she will be here and available in future conversations. And I just wanted to mention that she also is a part of our conversations here.
And I am here, Amy, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you all very much. I am just here to support Maggie and Angie. These guys are awesome. So.
Yeah, we've had some great conversations already in preparing for this, and Angie and Maggie have just put together a wealth of information for us to look through. I'm going to turn over controls to them and let them continue. Let's see. We thank you for all of you coming in and being here with us today. And let's see if we come up with some new ideas on how we can work together and really grow this relationship between us in the first of likely to be several different conversations and webinars together. So thank you, Angie. Thank you, Maggie. And thank you, Melissa, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Amy, for that fantastic welcome and introduction. We are so excited to be joining you all today. Both Angie and I are very fond of our local public libraries and the Kentucky Public Library system. And so we are thrilled to hopefully provide some additional resources and strategies to continue to build partnerships between public education and public libraries, utilizing our Family Resource and Youth Services Centers. Before we get started with our content, I feel just slightly at a disadvantage because now all of you know so much about Angie and I, but we don't know that much about you. So what I would invite our participants today to do, please, if you are comfortable in the chat, I would love to know what your primary service group is. Are they children? Do you primarily service the tween age group, teens, adults? I would love to know a little bit more about the participants in the room with us today. So please take just a moment and in that chat box, share with us who you serve most frequently in your work. Okay, so we have, I love that we have some center coordinators with us today. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so we have some individuals who serve elementary age students. Okay, children and teens, wonderful. Okay, workforce and adult services consultant with KDLA. Thank you so much for joining us, Hillary. Okay, kindergarten through 5th, FRC birth through 5th grade, FRC preschool through 5th. Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us. I have another question, but before we get to that, I want to review our learning objectives today. So those are going to be, those should be visible shortly. Okay, children 0 to 12, high school, wonderful. Okay, so our learning objectives that we've identified for this presentation are to increase knowledge of the Family Resource and Youth Service Center structure, as well as our mission and vision, to increase awareness of partnership opportunities, between public libraries and Family Resource and Youth Service Centers. And we also want to provide some resources so that public librarians in Kentucky can identify the Family Resource and Youth Service Center coordinators in their community. So during Angie and my time with you all today, that is the focus of our presentation. That is what we want to do for you. Oh, okay, wonderful. Amy, thank you so much for filling me in there. Yes, those who have phoned in, I realize don't have access to chat. I'm so sorry about that. So I do have another quick question, and that is, you know, if public libraries and public education are already partnering, I would love to know kind of the strength of the existing partnership that public libraries have with schools. So if participants wouldn't mind just to give us a little feedback, again, chat is fine, or if some are calling in and are not able to respond, I'm sorry about relying so heavily on the chat, but just on a scale of 0 to 3, how strong is your existing partnership either with your public library, if you're here representing a center or representing education, or if you're a librarian attending today, how strong is your partnership currently in terms of your partnership with the schools in your service area? So that is our second question. Okay. Oh my goodness, we started with both ends of our spectrum there. So we have a 0 and a 3. Okay, 2, 3. Excellent, thank you. Okay, we have actually every single option has already been reflected in the chat. You know, one of those big objectives for us is to give you tools that hopefully, if you're at a 0, will be something that is able to initiate that partnership, or if you are a 1 or a 2, we can move you up that spectrum. We definitely want to strengthen the relationship and the partnership between public education and our public library system. Okay, so I have a game. We are going to start off today with an activity that I hope you will find engaging and maybe even a little entertaining. So what I have done is looked into some recent programming, kind of over the last year is what I looked at, and identified some activities, events, or programs that were held by either public libraries in Kentucky or by Family Resource and Youth Services centers. And so what I would like to do, I think there's maybe 5 or so of these, maybe a couple more. I would like for us to guess whether the activity, program, or event was coordinated and facilitated by a public library, or whether it was coordinated or facilitated or planned by a Family Resource or Youth Services center. And you can choose to respond or provide input in any way that you feel comfortable. If you are comfortable unmuting, or if you are calling in and would like to chime in, please feel free to do so. Or if you are more comfortable continuing to use the chat box, we have our eye on that as well. So our first program today is Kids Crafternoon. So this is an activity in which attendees make a Valentine craft and participate in a STEM project. You can work at your own pace and take home instructions on how to make more crafts at home. So public library or Frisk, what do we think? Okay, quite a few public library responses. We do have a Frisk. I love these because in my experience, it could go either way. It would be perfectly acceptable for either one to host this type of a program. This one in particular was actually coordinated by my local public library right here in my hometown. It definitely could be either. What you'll notice is that's kind of a theme here. But this one was at the Boyle County Public Library. All right, our next program, Destination Kindergarten. Learn out loud with stories, songs, movement, and hands-on activities that promote kindergarten readiness. What do we think, library or Frisk? Lots of Frisk guesses. I did see a library pop up. All right, so this one is actually a program that was on the calendar at the Lexington Public Library. But trust me, this is the type of work that family resource centers do all the time. So let's move on to the next one. Reading Across the World Family Night. Families read books focused on different cultures and take activities and prompts to further discussions at home. Family Resource Center or public library? Lots of guesses for Frisk in chat. This one was held at a Frisk. This event was at Woodland Elementary, which is in the Hardin County Public School System in Hardin County. All right, our next one, Movement and Mindfulness. This is a 6-week series of children's yoga, a 6-week children's yoga program. Library, we have lots of guesses for library on this one. Okay, could be an FRC. Let's see what it was. This one was held at a family resource center. It was at Hazelwood Elementary School in Jefferson County. They are a part of the Jefferson County Public School District. All right, our next one, Take and Make Preschool Literacy Event. This was a drive-through event where families picked up a copy of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, and they also got a log of cookie dough so they could read and bake together as a family. Frisk or public library, what do we think? We have guesses for both. This event was held or was coordinated by a Family Resource and Youth Services Center in Pulaski County. This particular event was at Science Hill School. All right, the next one, Dress for Success. Participants will learn about appropriate attire for a job interview. Application and resume assistance are also available. I love it. We have both family resource centers and libraries guessed again. So this one in particular was held at the Kenton County Public Library. And I will say that in my last position as a youth service center, this was an event that we did annually as well. So both our public library systems and our youth services centers are developing and implementing similar programs. All right, we have two more. ACT Prep and Practice. This is a program in which attendees could review test-taking strategies and test content. Participants also got to take home portions of a practice test. Okay, I've seen Frisk Library. Oh my goodness, you all are almost in perfect like synchronicity. You're going back and forth. I love it. All right, so this particular event I pulled from the Boone County Public Library calendar of events. But again, it is an example of a type of program or activity that could be justifiably hosted in either a youth services center or a public library setting. All right, our last one is cradle school. So children learn and play with their parents to prepare them for kindergarten. Frisk or public library? Lots and lots of guesses for Frisk. We do have a guest for library. This one was hosted by a Family Resource and Youth Services Center. So Mary G. Hogsett Elementary School is in the Danville Independent School District in Boyle County. So I hope that you all enjoyed the game. I hope that it has gotten you started thinking about the similarities in the goals and the programming that happen both in Family Resource Youth Service Centers as well as in our Kentucky public libraries. So with that, I am going to hand over the next portion of the presentation to my co-presenter, Angie Daniels, and she is going to give you some kind of nuts and bolts information about Family Resource and Youth Services Centers. So Angie, take it away.
Thank you, Maggie. I'm so happy to be here this morning to talk about the partnerships and collaboration that we can do with the public libraries here in Kentucky. As Maggie said, I love the public library in Madison County. We do a lot of work together, and I'm hoping that we can give you guys some tips or some programs to think about that you could possibly do with the library in your town as well, or if you're a librarian, a Family Resource or Youth Service Center in your town. So I have to apologize to my FRYSCs on here that you're probably going to be hearing some information that you already know. But I think that it's essential information for the librarians to know the history of FRYSC and our mission and vision and what we're all about. So I'll just start really quick with the history. Kentucky's Family Resource and Youth Services Centers were established as a part of the historic Kentucky Education Reform Act of 1990. The FRYSCs remain programmatically intact as originally implemented with KYACers. And I've heard many people say over the years that FRYSC is one of the best things that came out of KYACers, and I have to agree. The mission for Family Resource Youth Service Centers is to create and sustain partnerships that promote early learning and successful transition into school, academic achievement and well-being while in school, and graduation and transition to adult life. And I noticed with Maggie's game that there are programs that you guys do in the public library that 100% meet those points of our mission that we strive to meet as well. So our vision is the Division of Family Resource and Youth Services Centers and the Cabinet for Health and Family Services shall establish the national standard of excellence in the provision of school-based family support. So there are states in the United States that have some sort of family support services at their school. But Family Resource and Youth Services Centers are unique to Kentucky. We were the founders and the first ones to ever put those things out there to be in the school, to be able to meet the needs of our kids. So we are unique in that aspect. So the focus of FRYSC is for each individual center to remove non-cognitive barriers to learning. So our goal is basically to level the playing field. We want every child in the classroom to come to school ready to learn with the same tools that the person is sitting right next to them. And so I'm not just talking about basic needs when I say that. Obviously, we're going to meet the needs of kids if they need more food at home, if they need a more stable place to live, we can help with that. If they need clothing, if they need school supplies, we are 100% going to meet those needs. But it's also important to think about the experiences and opportunities that our kids deserve to have. So every classroom across the state, there are some children that have tons of experiences and opportunities. They have parents who get to take them to the public library, who get to take them to local museums, who get to take them to plays and things like that. but then we have those kids that don't get those experiences and opportunities. So as Family Resource Youth Service Center coordinators, it's our goal to make sure that they have the opportunity to receive those experiences and opportunities the same as the person sitting right next to them in their classroom. So the programs, activities, services of our centers are to be designed locally to meet the needs of students and families so as to enhance students' abilities in school. And you'll hear about in a minute our core components that every Family Resource Youth Service Center across the state work to meet. But that is individual to our local school or our local center, because the needs in, say, southeastern Kentucky are going to be different than the needs in Louisville. So looking at it big picture, we're going to meet all of those needs, but we're going to do that in different ways. So underlying themes of the FRYSC programs are increased parent involvement, service brokerage for students and families, which I know the public library does so much of. So that is something that when people think about Family Resource Centers and youth service centers, they think about the programs that we do, but we also work individually with those families. So not just the students in our schools, but we work with their families at home to serve as a broker to resources in the community. And I know that public librarians do that as well. And then we strive to have a broader community development. So in order to do that, we have partnerships. So we start in the center, every aspect that we do is focused on the student and the family. And then we have a lot of partnerships starting with government, businesses, the faith community, and nonprofit organizations. We could not do what we do each and every day without these partnerships. And the public librarians are one of the best partnerships that we have. And so we hope after this presentation that you, if you're not already working with your public librarian or with your Family Resource Youth Service Center coordinator, that you will find a program that you both already do to help each other to work on and be successful together. So I wanted to talk a little bit about funding, how Family Resource Centers are funded. We are a state entity. However, individual coordinators are hired by our school board. So coordinators are school board employees, but our funding comes from the state down to our local school board. So the funding is based on the number of students eligible for free and reduced meals on December 1st of each year in every single school. So they will pull a count on December 1st every year to decide the number of students within that school that is eligible for free and reduced lunch. And so currently we are sitting at $183.86 per student per school year. And that has fallen a lot over the years. As Amy said, I have been in Family Resource Youth Service Center since 2004. And when I first began in 2004, we were receiving $210 per every free lunch child. So we have had to learn how to work with our community partners even more so to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, because we're having to do so with less funding. And so there's an assumption that every school that's eligible for a Family Resource and Youth Service Center, the minimum that they're going to have is 180 students. So those are those minimum grants, you know. So if you multiply 180 times $183.86, that's what that school or that center has to run a full year on. And that also includes typically the coordinator's salary. And also an assumption of a maximum of 450 students. So there are some schools in the state that have well over 1,000 students, and they may have close to 1,000 students that qualify for free and reduced lunch, but they are only going to receive funding for 450 of those students. But they're still required to meet the same goals as any other size school. So again, that's where those partnerships come into play, and it's so essential for us to have them to make sure that all of the needs are met for our students. So as I said, funding is based on an annual December 1 free meal count, and it is contingent upon the biennial budget approved by the General Assembly. So when I had in that slide about our partnerships, government was in there. So it's so essential for our government to understand what we are doing to help our students and families each and every day, so that they won't forget about Family Resource and Youth Service Centers when they are creating that budget. So used to years ago, we would say, oh, it's a grant year. We have to write our grant this year. And so now over the years, we have changed that to a continuation application. So Family Resource Center, Family Resource and Youth Service Centers aren't going anywhere, but we have to continue to make a work plan every other year to show our constituents and our stakeholders what we are going to do to meet the needs of our students. So centers submit a continuation application every 2 years. Core components required in authorizing legislation must be addressed in that plan. So you're going to see in a minute the core components that we have to meet and how we address those when we talk about programs. Centers must conduct a needs assessment to determine how to address the components. So a moment ago, I mentioned how we are required to meet those components across the state, but each individual school has different needs. So that's how we decide what programs and what things that we need to do as Family Resource Youth Service Centers is based on that local needs assessment. Centers can also have optional components that address the unique needs of their school community. So one of my optional components is educational support, but other programs may have like welfare or different things like that. Whatever their strongest need is, if it's not met by one of those core components, they have the opportunity to put in there an optional component to make sure that those needs are being met as well. And so obviously our action components are becoming more outcome driven. So just as Maggie did, we wanted to let you guys know the learning objectives that we had today. And then at the end, we're going to ask you to fill out an evaluation to see how we did, to see if we gave you the information that you needed to be able to fit in those learning objectives. So it's important as Family Resource and Youth Service Centers for us to begin thinking that way when we're doing our programs, so that we can prove that what we're doing is making a difference. So you heard me talk a lot about those components, and this is them. This is what we have to meet. Family Resource Centers are in elementary schools. They serve students preschool through 5th grade, and they are required to meet preschool childcare for 2 to 3 years old, childcare for 4 to 12-year-olds, and after school and summer programs, families in training, and family literacy and health services. Youth Service Centers are in middle and high schools, and they service grades 6 through 12. They do referrals to health and social services, summer and part-time job development, especially at the high school level, career education and development, substance abuse education and counseling, family crisis and mental health counseling. And that's not to say that we don't cross the board on those. So I do just a Family Resource Center, but I 100% do referrals to health and social services. I may not do part-time and summer job development for my students, but I work individually with parents who are looking for a job. And one of the places that I may refer them is to the library for some programs that you all do that would help them with that. Also with career education, oh, sorry, Maggie, you go back real quick. Career education and development, you know, that's something that we need to start at a very early age. So in Family Resource Centers, we may not do the things that they do in Youth Service Centers for that, but we may do career days or reality stores, things like that, to have students begin to think about what they're going to do in their adult life. And obviously across the state right now, substance abuse education and counseling is so important. So we do begin that early on. That's not just in middle and high school. It has to start in elementary school as well. Okay, you can go on now. So if you are not currently active with your local family resource or youth service center and you want a way to get involved, this is the first step that I would suggest. So every family resource youth service center coordinator across the state has an advisory council, and we are required to have input on that council from schools, communities, and parents. And so it would be a great partnership for you to be on that council as a community member representing the public library. So the Advisory Council is the foundation of all successful family resource youth service centers. It is critical to the ongoing growth and development of FRYSC. The council serves as that body that assists the center coordinator in fulfilling the mission of the center. So a lot of times it's hard when you're in a school all day long to not just be school minded. So that's why it's important for us to be able to get that information from community members to remind us what's going on outside of our four walls of the school. So it's essential in assuring that community, parent, and school input occurs in the planning, implementation, and oversight of center activities. Each center must have a functioning advisory council. Advisory councils keep the program community-centered rather than coordinator-centered. The council provides a broad base of support for the center, and the council provides input and oversight in the planning, implementation, and evaluation of center services and activities. So that was a lot of information that I threw at you all at one time. So before we move on, Amy, was there any questions about anything specific at this point?
Nothing in the chat, but if you all have questions, feel free to throw them in and I'll be gathering them, and also we can have a question time at the end. So jot yourself some notes if you're thinking of things.
Okay, great. So at this point, I'm going to send it back to Maggie for a moment, and then I will be back with you to talk about some examples of partnerships that are already going on across the state.
Thank you,
Angie.
Angie. So I wanted to take some time. One of the tasks that I gave myself in kind of preparing for this presentation today was to look at specifics in how FRYSCs and public libraries are connected in our goals, in our mission, in our best practice. And so I evaluated a couple of documents that were shared with me by Amy. Thank you so much. They were super helpful. And just wanted to share some of the things that I found when I was reading and kind of researching in how we are connected. So the first document that I reviewed was the core values of librarianship. And there was a statement within the subheading of education and lifelong learning that the American Library Association promotes the creation, maintenance, and enhancement of a learning society, encouraging its members to work with educators. And then it continues to say, in every community, to provide lifelong learning services to all. And where I found that paralleled or overlapped with Family Resource and Youth Service Centers was right in our mission statement, which I know that Angie had already shared this with you, but I just wanted to reinforce how alike we are in the services we provide to the students and families we serve. That FRYSC mission statement states that our mission is to enhance students' abilities to succeed in school by developing and sustaining partnerships that promote early learning and successful transition to school, academic achievement and well-being, and then graduation and transition to adult life. So I feel like our goals as librarians and as Family Resource and Youth Service Center coordinators, it's all about providing students or providing families, providing the individuals that we serve with the tools that they need to be successful at any stage of life. We happen to focus specifically on birth through transition into adult life, whereas librarians have a much broader scope. You are serving individuals through all walks of life, but also ensuring that they have access to information and the tools to be successful and to provide them with the ability to access lifelong learning. The other document that I reviewed was the competencies for librarians serving children in libraries. So a little more specific on this one, just because this is kind of the service area that overlaps most directly. And within those competencies, I looked at all of them, but the ones that I think warranted some additional study were the commitment to the client group, programming skills, and outreach and advocacy. And these were amazing to me in the way that I saw overlap between what they identified as strategies or expectations for, what public libraries present in terms of information and programs to students, and the standards that Family Resource and Youth Services Centers adhere to, which are called the Standards of Quality for Family Strengthening and Support. There was also just a wealth of overlap with our action components, which Angie just reviewed with you. I'm not going to, to bore you with reading those or going through them again. And then also our center goals, which we identified early on as removing non-academic barriers to student success. Specifically, just a couple of things I want to mention before we get into some more of the meat of this presentation with examples of programming, is the emphasis on embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion to all of the individuals that are served through our libraries or through our education systems. I loved the statement within the competencies document that talks about demonstration respect for diversity and inclusion of cultural values, developing cultural awareness. As Family Resource and Youth Service Center coordinators and staff, we are striving toward some of those same goals. That's actually one of the 5 elements within our standards of quality, in which all centers are striving for continuous improvement. I also loved, I'd never reviewed this document before, but I love that it identified recognizing societal factors. We as coordinators deal on a daily basis with income inequality, with health barriers, and with food insecurity. Those are some of the issues that arise in families' lives that we work to tackle and kind of support families as they overcome. The emphasis on infant and child development, librarians, you all are going to be such amazing tools and resources for the coordinators in the counties that you serve, because our coordinators are housed in public schools. They're housed in facilities that have, those preschool 3 and 4-year-olds up, but yet our action components require us to serve that birth to 3 age group as well. So those of you that are having baby lap sit programs, or like a mommy and me, or a story hour that targets that toddler age group, there are opportunities for connection and collaboration within those that I think that your coordinators would be thrilled for an opportunity to participate with you as a partner if they are not already. The removing barriers to access, that is when someone asks a FRYSC coordinator what we do, most coordinators struggle with how to answer that question. Most of us think, well, what do we not do? So essentially, if there is a student in public education that is not demonstrating success in the classroom, and it is not the result of, a diagnosed learning disability or a diagnosed other setback that is, handled by the special education departments in our schools, that would be an example of an academic barrier to student success. Coordinators, any other barrier to success, any other problem that is, arising in that student's life that is preventing them from succeeding at their highest ability, that's a non-academic barrier. And that comes to the coordinator's office. That falls in the coordinator's lap. So when I read language in this document for public librarians about removing barriers to access, I feel like even our mindsets from the work that we do, the way that we approach the goals that we have, it's all about removing barriers for the individuals that we serve so that they are empowered and have the tools and resources to excel. Let me flip really quickly. I want to make sure there wasn't anything that I wanted to specifically address. Again, this is more, I feel like this is more nuts and bolts, and you all will be most benefited by the next session of our presentation today. I don't feel like I need to justify or get your buy-in anymore. I hope that at this point you are excited and looking for opportunities, either if you're a coordinator to partner with your local library, or if you are a librarian to partner with your local Family Resource and Youth Service Center coordinators. I guess the one thing I just thought that I do want to be sure to mention is there is a huge focus in our centers on improving literacy, not just in students, but in their families as well. So that is such a natural connection between the work that we do, whether that's pre-literacy skills, early literacy, or family literacy. Those are things that our centers are looking for, tools, resources, programming ideas that I feel like is such a natural fit for our public librarians. All right, so let's move on. I am going to give the floor back to Angie, and she is going to start reviewing some specific examples of successful existing programs between public libraries and Family Resource and Youth Services centers.
Thank you, Maggie. This is most definitely my favorite part of our presentation. I loved your game part. That was my most favorite. But now I wanted to talk about the programs that I am aware of that are already happening with a partnership between public librarians and Family Resource and Youth Service centers across the state. So the first example that you will see is of book clubs. And so these specific pictures of this book club was done at Ferristown Middle School and Foley Middle School Youth Services Center here in Madison County. And just a few things that Zach Ray suggested when hosting a book club with your local librarian. Sometimes it's hard to think of when to offer clubs, when are they going to be the most successful. So one of the suggestions he had was during lunchtime. So students can get their lunch, come to the Youth Service Center, then the public librarian comes in and does the book club with them during that time. So that's been very successful for him. Also, especially some high schools, locally anyway, and I'm thinking that probably most high schools across the state have either a club day or a club time each week, something like that. So a book club may be something that the Youth Service Center would be willing to host for you at their school during that club time. And then obviously there's after school. All Family Resource Youth Service Centers across the state have some type of after school programs going on. Sometimes we work with like 21st century programs or things like that that host within our school that we could tap into. Or sometimes Family Resource Youth Service Centers will just hold a specific after school program, say every Tuesday for an hour for 6 weeks. And so that would be a good time for the library to come in and do a book club. So a few ways that he suggested to make these book clubs awesome are to tie the book that you're going to read during your club to a movie, or have some type of author event where the kids get to watch the movie at the end of reading the book, or a local author comes in to talk to them. Also, he suggested letting kids choose the books, and getting yearly feedback. So I thought that was a pretty cool program that's already going on. The next one is drama clubs, and Zach Ray at Fairstown and Foley also does this. But some of these programs are also from Kim Quinlan at the Madison Middle School and Clark Moore's Middle School Youth Service Center, also here in Madison County. And so this is 100% a group of kids that don't have enough things out there for them. We have a whole group of kids that drama is their niche. And I feel like in most communities, they're not a place out there for them to go to. So it's so important, when I was talking about earlier, for us to level the playing field. We got to bring that to them. So this is a great way to do that. So our local public librarian will come in and host a drama club. And again, they could do that during club time or after school. They suggested, my youth service center coordinators that I talked to about this suggested definitely making a collaboration with the drama and theater program at the local high school. So if you're doing this as a youth service center, or if you work with your middle school youth service center to start this drama program, you could then also link the high school drama and theater program at the local high school. And so that's going to be just an additional partnership, an additional collaboration that you can have to meet more students. So when, if you suggest hosting a drama school at or drama club at a local school, and the coordinator says, I just didn't have very many kids signed up, there's like 2, but that's not enough to do anything with, then you as a public librarian could reach out to maybe the other schools in the county and say, hey, do you have 2 or 3 kids that would want to do this? Do you have 2 or 3 kids that would want to do this? And then combine those and be able to make this one awesome program for all of those students to participate in. One great thing to do to be able to get more participation, I'm sure, is to plan a performance. So if you do a short-term club, so you do a 6 or 8 week program, then plan a performance at the end, and then you get that parent involvement piece as well, because they are going to come and watch their kids perform. Also, a great collaboration would be to host a field trip to a local performing arts theater. So that's something that you could work on with your local youth service center to collaborate. Maybe you would host that at the library, or you could meet them at the performing arts theater to be able to do that with the students that you've been working with in that drama club. So I think that sounds like a very cool program. The next one that I'm going to talk about is I'm pretty partial to, because I do it myself here at my local library. It's called Music Time, and the focus is for kids 0 to 5 that are not yet in school. We do this for many reasons. We do it obviously for kindergarten readiness. We do this for for us to be able to get to meet the students and their parents before they get to our schools. And we do this for those social connections that it makes for our families. So when they come to these programs, their children meet each other and become friends, but also their parents meet each other and become friends. And so that has been such a huge impact for a lot of the kids and their families that I've seen come up through those early literacy programs that we start. And then once they get into school, they already have those community social connections. So what we do here in Madison County, Dana Lowe at Silver Creek and Shannon Johnson Elementary and I collaborate together in the summer. If you'll see in the first picture, that's at the Madison County Public Library. Obviously, this picture was pre-COVID, because that summer we had nearly 50 kids that would come every week. We did not even have space for them. Like, they had to completely cancel everything else that was going on in the library at that time just so that we would have enough space. But the reason we enjoy doing that so much in the summer at the library is because that's how we make those connections with those families. And then during the school year, if you'll see on the other picture, we then host music time at our individual schools. So that allows those kids who will be coming to our schools to start to come on a monthly basis to get used to coming in our schools. And it also helps them to learn us so that when they get ready to come to school, that they already know a friendly face. So one thing that Dana and I have started doing is we host an early literacy activity every Friday of the month. So the first Friday we host music time at Silver Creek. The second Friday we do a program called Book Buddies at Kingston. The third Friday we do a program called Laugh and Learn, and that's a partnership with the Madison County Extension Office. And then the fourth Friday we suggest that our families, because it's pretty much the same group of kids that come to all those programs, we suggest that they go to the story time that our public library hosts that fourth Friday. So that's also allowing them to go there at that point and learn all of the great programs that you all are already providing as well. And so that continues their social connections. This next program is one that I am 100% going to do at my school. I have never done this before, but to it. Ashley Taylor at Glen Marshall Elementary and B. Michael Cottle Middle School in Richmond does this with their local library. It is called One Book, One School, and you probably have heard about this program. I just had not thought about collaborating with the library for this program, but I think it's going to be amazing. So basically the whole school receives the same copy of a book, and so that's something that typically family resource centers would be able to provide. But if not, if that's something that public librarians could provide, maybe you could go in together and purchase those books for all of the students, or talk about that funding and see who's able to do that. But this is the thing that I thought that the public librarians could help with the school. So when they did this, they did a daily trivia during announcements. So if the public librarian could come in and give us those trivia questions to do on the announcements each morning, kids get so excited about that. Also, activities during library time. We have a librarian at all of our schools that would love to have the public librarian come in and do activities. So that would be another relationship that you could build within the schools, not just with your FRYSC, but also with the school librarian, because I know, speaking from my school, they would love to have some help and some assistance from different aspects, especially with this One Book, One School program. And then what I plan to do is to then hold a family literacy night at the end of the One Book, One School, and be able to host all of the families that participated at my school. Or you could do it at the public library, which would then in turn get more people visiting your library, and maybe not ones that have been before. So this may be a unique opportunity that they can start something at school, but then we could tie it into them visiting the library so that they can see all the great things that you guys have going on already. And then at the end, I just had this great quote by Carmen at Cardinal Valley Elementary, and she's speaking about the Village Branch Public Library. She says the children's librarian has come into the past into the preschool classroom for a literacy program. They offer an after-school homework program. They're the best partners that I have. And I think that many family resource and youth service centers would say that in speaking about their public librarians. So I'm hopeful that that connection has already been made, but I know a lot of times there is turnover and things like that. So if you don't have that connection yet with your local schools, Family Resource Youth Service Center, we hope after this presentation today that you will 100% start to make that partnership. So those are all of the examples that I have of programs. I know there are many more that are already going on out there, and we would love to hear about those. But at this time, are there any questions about any of the programs or any of the information that we have presented to you today?
Angie, if it's okay, I would also love to kind of open the floor if anyone in attendance has a successful partnership or program that they would like to take a moment to share about as well. We do want to spend just a couple of minutes if you have a partnership that you wouldn't mind sharing with your colleagues. One thing that FRYSC coordinators are really good at is borrowing or stealing ideas from others. We love to see what works in the communities around us so that we can consider implementing those at our home schools. So if you have any questions, or if you have an example of a successful program or even just a partnership. This past summer, we partnered with our public library because the bookmobile offered free Wi-Fi. So when we did online registration events in some of our community housing areas or in some of our lower income areas of our community, we would set up a table and do school registration, but the public library, who allowed us to use their free Wi-Fi so that our Chromebooks could connect to the online registration process, also signed up children and families for library cards, or allowed them to tour the bookmobile and make some selections as well, and shared their calendar of events. It wasn't necessarily a program, but it was a way that our partnership, helped us accomplish a goal that we had in getting students registered online, but also was able to expose those children and families in some of the pockets or neighborhoods in our community that hadn't taken advantage of the resources available through their public library. There is a comment in chat. Angela Smith, thank you so much. McLean County has a great partnership with our FRYSC. It has been going on for 11 years. That's wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that. Let's see, there's another comment. Is KCPL Kenton County?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I am admittedly not on top of my Kentucky geography. I'm not born and bred in the bluegrass, but I'm learning. But helps promote kindergarten registration, and we attend all family literacy nights, back to school nights, born learning nights. That's wonderful. I'm so excited to hear about that. Thank you so much. An FRC in Shelby County, our children's librarian serves on the advisory council.
Yep.
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Thank you. So in a moment, I'm going to drop a link to our evaluation for today's presentation. And one of the questions on there asks about your next steps as a participant. We're going to ask you to consider what you might stop, what you might start, what you might continue, or what you might change in terms of how you can use the information from today. And if you are a librarian not on your local advisory council, please consider that being an action step for you. It is a way in the door to your public library or public school, pardon me, get connected and begin building those partnerships. Another comment in the chat, we partner with our public library for our summer reading challenge. It starts at school, goes on in the library through the summer, and students are rewarded when school starts back. That's another great, very natural partnership that can occur because, as coordinators, we want to help prevent that summer slide that occurs. And, that's why summer programming or summer care is identified as one of our action components. And public libraries have the coolest, summer reading programs. So yes, get your students involved. That's wonderful. Thank you. In Livingston County, we collaborate with our local public library to host a program called Beyond Books. We use our children's books to build protective factors. Oh, love it. Buzzword. Our high school family and consumer science class does lesson plans and teaches children while we work with adults. Kenton County, 5 different public school districts. I completely understand. Some of our larger counties have, the largest county in the region that I serve has 3 different school districts. So not quite as large as Kenton, but within those 3 different school districts, I believe there are 14 school buildings. Each of those buildings has their own center. So it would stretch our librarians very thin to try to serve on 14 advisory councils. So I understand. Amy, thank you for dropping.
I actually need to cut you off.
No problem.
You guys would fill this up with no problem at all. So I dropped the link for the Google evaluation form, and Maggie just did it again. So you have it there. If you lose it later, I can help you hook you up with the evaluation form. Thank you all for being here. Thank you especially to our wonderful presenters today. So we are very fortunate to have both of them sharing with us and allowing us to hear from all over the state, from Maggie and Angie, and the stories they brought to us and the games they've shared, and especially for the information you've given us. Just as encouragement, don't just think about the big bangs, but think about the little diddles too. Consider the small programs that we do every single day. Chances are your FRCs are going to be interested in them. So hit them up, start sending emails. I'm happy to connect you with people in your schools. Angie and Maggie have also offered that they do that as well. We have one more link to give to you is the Family Resource Center website. And I put that in the chat for you. So you can, if you're not sure who your Family Resource Center staff are, that's one of the places you can look, or not sure how to spell that last name. Does it have an E or not? It's a place to look. So please consider reaching out, taking those first steps or additional steps for those of you that are already involved, and suck them in as much as you can. Let's help our neighborhoods just have that many more resources and support. So again, thank you, Angie and Maggie, for being here. Thank you, Melissa, for being in the background, supporting all of this and helping this to happen. I look forward to our next meetings, and hopefully some of you public librarians will come and help me present to the Family Resource Centers about all that we do on the front lines. So feel free to hit me up anytime. And as I said, Angie and Maggie have offered to be available to you as well. So thank you again, ladies, for all that you did.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you. This was wonderful. We appreciate it.
Yeah. And we're able to present this webinar because of funding with IMLS, and we deeply appreciate that as well. Just have a good evening. Good afternoon, I guess I should really say. It's sort of dark. So take care. Goodbye now.
Bye.
Bye.